CEO of Gateway Jacks. That's it.
Yep. Yeah. Bryan Moll. That's the only thing that.
Wow, how do people mess that up?
Like Moll or something.
Mall.
Like a shopping mall.
That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Like a
Think of it as like Mall, mall.
Okay. I think we're live. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Welcome, everybody, to your weekly edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, we have someone returning to the show. Somebody we talk about probably about a third of all of our shows because of the impact that he's having here in Jacksonville. As we know, cities with a revitalized downtown appreciate an average of 80% faster than others than the national average. And in order to do that, you need to placemake. You need to go from an 8-hour downtown to a 16-hour downtown. And that's happening right now in Jacksonville. One of the big projects that's making that happen is Gateway Jacks, is being done by Gateway Jacks.
Yeah.
It's the Pearl Street District.
Pearl Square.
Pearl Square.
Yeah.
God, I should have done my research here. A Pearl Square District. And we have the CEO of Gateway Jacks, Bryan Moll. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you back.
Appreciate it.
In studio this time.
In studio.
Last time you were on Zoom.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm Pablo Gonzalez. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. I'm disheveled because I don't have Greg here. I have like a whole intro that I do with Greg.
Oh, okay.
And a million different nicknames, and that's our routine. But it's good to have you on. Bryan, you remember how we start our shows?
I do.
Usually, right? Do you remember what it's called?
No.
The roll call.
That's right.
That's the roll call. And kicking us off is the Maven from the mountains of Denver.
All right. Let's go.
You were like, yeah, you got someone from Denver that shows up here. That's the first thing.
That's right.
We got our lead-up hitter, John Henning. We got Mark Sauer from Cincinnati, Ohio. We got the patron Santorios of the Not Your Average Investor community, Michael Santorios, the MVP, Lee Bishop, Le Monsieur Regiofonse from Le Inland Empire. We got Jeff Lenve greeting us here. We've got Not Your Average Guest. If you check in from the text, I don't know your name. It just says Not Your Average Guest. So from Santa Rosa, California, good to have you. Let me know who you are. We got the Ringmaster, Drew Barnhill. Rich Sika from Jacksonville. Rich, good to have you back. The Mountain Man, Billy Green from the mountains of Colorado. Il Maestro, John Williams from Long Island, New York. LinkedIn Lowry, Ed Lowry, good to have you. The fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor community, Jen Filzen. The Linda Evans from the Villages in Florida. Good to have you, Linda. Pamela Myers, our favorite smile from the Pacific Northwest. The early bird, Dean Curry. I feel like this is just getting really awkward for you. I'm just.
No, it's great. I'm loving this. This is good.
The early bird.
Impressive that you remember all these nicknames.
Dude, I gave them these nicknames.
Okay,
man.
perfect.
This is my creation. Dean Curry, the early bird. Jeff Maroon-Cow is back. Jeff, I love that you're making a habit of coming to the show, man. This is awesome. Robin Schofield from New Hampshire. Robin, good to have you back. Laura Colby from Washington State. The matriarch and patriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show, Ken and Caroline Moline. We salute you. Eddie Harris from Hotlanta. Mark Norman from sunny California. Rob Joseph from Virginia. Big Papa's in the house. Jay's dad.
Oh, nice.
Greg's dad, Jay Cohen.
Yeah. That's great.
The co-founder.
Jay.
The co-founder of the co-founder. Eileen Moore from New York City. Sarah Jennings from Jersey. Justine Herrera from sunny California. Let's get into it, Bryan. I was telling you when you first got here that we have a loyal community that comes to these shows. So at least half of the folks here have heard from you. They know who you are. Many of them have met you at the Not Your Average Investor Summit.
That's right.
But for those that are new, Gateway Jacks is a project that was thought up by a group of investors, kind of like led by JWB and
that's right.
And DLP, right?
Yeah. Really quickly, so for those of you that have not heard the story, 4 years ago now, actually probably about 3.5 years ago, is when I first got connected with Alex.
Yeah.
2021. It was late 2021.
Alex Zafakis, co-founder of JWB.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's really where it all began. And we chatted for about 6 or 7 months about the opportunity. I had the chance to meet the DLP Capital team. As well as the rest of the JWB real estate capital team, and the rest is history. We founded, what is today, the 29th? We founded the company on August 1st, 2022.
Okay.
and I was employee number one. I like to tell the story. Employee number one, I literally got in the car and went to Office Max on my first day to buy a printer. So I had a printer. I think JWB let me a computer, so at least I had that going. But yeah, we started it from scratch. The JWB Real Estate Capital team had already put several projects either under ownership or sites, I should say, under ownership, a couple of assets or contract. And we've been off to the races since then. We now have about 25 city blocks, all are parts of 25 city blocks, about 32 different acres.
25 city blocks.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy all throughout the urban core of downtown.
Yeah.
And our first phase is called Pearl Square.
Pearl
And
Square.
we were calling it the Pearl Street District for the longest time. So don't
It's not my
fault you.
fault.
It's not your fault.
All
It
right,
was probably ours. But we finally branded it Pearl Square.
Okay.
And really quick side story about that. The team from or the group from Colorado is going to appreciate this, but a University of Colorado Boulder graduate alum, and there's a street there called Pearl Street, which is one of the more famous streets I think in all of Colorado. But beautiful street. And simultaneously, there's a place in Denver called Larimer Square, which was one of the first areas of lower downtown Lodo that was renovated. And those were two, as I grew up in Colorado too. So I visited those places a lot growing up, and they're very big sources of inspiration for me in terms of how retail can really do a great job of placemaking. And so I found out there was a Pearl Street in Jacksonville, and that it was actually all around our retail, our projects, our sites. And I thought, wow, you couldn't create a better script. The one thing I'll say about Larimer Square, that I think is a testament to what even one block of just really great, thoughtful public realm investment and really good retail, lots of food and beverage. But even, the flags that come over the street there, it's just everything has been done so well there. And now it's so old, they're turning over, the tenants are turning over, because their leases have come to an end. But anyway, so that was really a source of inspiration for me, and is the namesake of our first phase.
I love it, man. That's
Yeah.
that's a new story. That's a new story that we hadn't heard. Man, we can just dive into it, right? Because I love placemaking. I love the stuff, right? I think I've told you, my wife has a master's in urban design, right?
Yeah.
So like we have these conversations around the dinner table. When we talk about placemaking, I think of placemaking as a conscious way of, like I think there's real estate developers and then there's placemakers, right? Like real estate developers to me are concentrated on the performance of maybe a singular deal or multiple deals that are happening. And it's almost like limited to this Excel sheet numbers. When I think of placemaking, I think of people that are really thinking through these externalities that happen when you aren't just you're thinking about the returns on investment, but you also recognize that there is some hidden kind of like magic sauce in understanding how the built environment affects the human experience.
Totally.
And because of that, you're more likely to maybe give up some buildable square footage for the sake of a public-private space or, old growth trees that add shade and add quality of life.
Grocery store.
How am I doing? Grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. The very first job that I had coming out of college, and it was in Washington, D.C. I had interned on Capitol Hill for about 3 months and realized I wasn't ready for politics at that point in time. But I got a job working for a company called RCL Co. And it was a consulting company, and I ended up spending my first 2 professional years at RCL Co. And it was the types of consulting that they would do is mostly for real estate developers, but most real estate developers would come to, or landowners would come to RCL Co. with a piece of property, maybe an idea, all throughout the country, and say, what should we do with this? And There's a tremendous alumni network from RCL Co because it really the type of training and environment that we had there really got us to think about just don't get caught within the four walls of the building, right? Start thinking about the environment, what adds value, and it was a very data focused company. So we started investigating what percent of increase in value or increase in rents can you get if you had a grocery store? What does a park do? What's the ideal what's the ideal outdoor amenity space or outdoor seating space for a retailer? What are the traits that lead to higher retail rents? Like all these different things that we would research. And so while at the University of Colorado, I studied urban planning, it was a very design forward 4 years when I first got started learning about real estate development. My next 2+ years were more analytical, and so I was able to sort of bring those two things together. But through that time period, there are certain things that have not changed. One is public spaces, really great programmed public parks, um, especially ones that have retail around or near it, grocery stores, food and beverage. Certain things have been pretty timeless in the 2+ years that I've been in the business.
Yeah.
And I think that, even with a grocery store, for example, a lot of people thought that home delivery of groceries was going to totally change the grocery business. And it probably has in many ways. But in an urban environment, you love to not have to think about ordering groceries for a week because you can just run downstairs and go to the grocery store and pick up a couple things and run back up to your condo or your apartment. So there are definitely things that have been tried and true that help create value when you have the scale that we do.
Super interesting, man. As you tell the story, it's like, yes, you were the perfect guy that was like engineered to become this person that does this, right? Like I think in our first show together, we talked about what do you tell your mom you do? Like, do you tell your mom that you're a city builder?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember if I told this story on the last time I was
Yeah.
on, but as long as I can remember, I've loved some aspect of the built environment. It started with Legos. My dad was a bricklayer, and through that, I got to see a lot of like home building when I was really young. Started with Legos, got into SimCity for all of you SimCity nerds out there. And I've just loved it throughout my entire life. When I graduated from high school, fortuitous was this. My parents took out a little ad. I don't know if you like when you graduate high school, your yearbook, you
Yeah,
can
you
take out ads
yeah,
and stuff. Um, well, they took out a little ad and it said, today or yesterday you were playing with blocks. Tomorrow, you'll be building cities or something like that,
interesting.
which was really cool. So,
Cool.
yeah, there's obviously there are reasons why downtown Jacksonville is primed for continued growth. And I think probably spectacular growth over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's not just us. I mean, there has been uh, tremendous, like I think $2 billion. There's $8 billion of planned and proposed and under construction or completed assets that have been done and all throughout downtown. I mean, $8 billion of private and public capital
That's a lot.
that is funneling into downtown. So we are certainly doing our part. We're bringing in a lot of really great retail amenities, good public spaces, as you mentioned, hotels, a lot of great stuff. We now control a site that's on the St. John's River, which we're looking forward to activate that area of downtown. But anyway, so it's, there's a lot going on and we're super excited about what we're doing.
I'm excited. Like
Yeah.
as a resident, as a investor in Jacksonville, somebody that lives here that's gonna enjoy it in every way, right? Like I'm gonna enjoy it from going there, and I'm gonna enjoy it from like the home price appreciation that's gonna happen.
Good. Yep.
Super pumped about it. I want to show kind of like bring people along visually a little bit of like the project to just catch everybody up, and then just talk through kind of like what's happening on the ground and what you're seeing, right? So
Yep.
I wanted to share this little. A lot of our community has seen these slides, but for anybody that hasn't yet, um, this is basically the Gateway Jacks presentation, right? Like this Pearl Square, downtown, Jacksonville, crazy statistics, right? $2 billion in development, 1,250 plus residential units, 2,000 square feet of retail, $750 million a year in economic impact across 25 city blocks. I know that right now what you are working on is the first phase of that. So we're going to talk about
That's right.
different numbers to that. But to show everybody kind of like befores and afters, anybody that's been on the Not Your Average Investor Tour over the last couple of years, we all got together in this area at some point. Now this area looks like this. It's already starting to be built. It's going to end up looking like this. You just mentioned this idea of like one corner, how a corner, like
Yeah.
what's that called? A coupling, a groupling? What is it? When you get three different street corners to communicate.
Oh wow, this might be a new this might be a new term for me.
I'll get it in a second. But anyways, right?
Coupling, I like that though. That sounds right.
Man, I know what it is because we've talked about it when it came to the Sweet Pete's building and
Oh yeah.
and the Federal Reserve.
Well, I can tell you corners are absolutely important. Probably one of the most important things that you can do. And actually, if you kind of hold on the one Pearl Street and Beaver Street, yeah. One of the most important things that you can do as cluster. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In addition to clustering, it's really important to create some of the best environments. If you can think of some of the best urban environments that you've been in, I would venture to guess that among the top 5 of them, there was double-sided activation, meaning you've got activity on one side, very similar to coupling. This should make me think of clustering. Sorry. And just a couple of the names that I mentioned earlier: Pearl Street, Larimer Square, but really any really
Water Street District.
Water Street is another one.
Lived this, and I sent you a text from there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it holds up, not all the time, but time and time again, having the experience of activity on both sides of a street or both sides of a pedestrian way is really important to making a place.
When you say activity on both sides, are we talking about like having this restaurant over here and then a crosswalk and there's another restaurant? What is the definition of an activity?
I would say for the most part, probably 9 times out of 10, it's a restaurant, food and beverage, or some kind of shopping. So it could be soft goods. Think of like a Lululemon or something like that. Something that's got activity, people walking in and out of the door or eating on the street. On this slide in particular, so Beaver Street today has none of that. Today, now there are buildings under construction along it, ours. But today it's 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction, no bike lanes, and pretty small sidewalks. Yeah. And so what we are doing intentionally, we're setting the buildings back so we can get larger sidewalks. We have outdoor dining opportunities that will front every single one of our restaurants. We're actually going to require that the restaurants have outdoor seating if they want to be in our project. And which they'd want to do anyway because they can make more money doing it. But then we're adding bike lanes. We actually now have a turn lane in the middle, and we're actually unconsciously slimming down the amount of travel lanes from 4 to 2, minus the turn lane. So that will ultimately slow down traffic, make it better for a pedestrian, make it feel more comfortable for people shopping on both sides of the street.
So it's activated in the sense that you can do something on one side of the street and on the other side of the street. And then on top of that, you're making it easy to like cross the street.
Yes. And so, and the thing, it's interesting because there is some, I guess, psychology that gets into this, because it's not just that you could shop across the street or you could go, it's visually seeing the activity across the street that makes you feel more comfortable being on the other side of the street. And so, that's getting back to my urban planning days. There's a whole science behind the way that you can design successful public spaces. And putting retail and food and beverage specifically on both sides of a street is one of those ways.
Interesting. So this is essentially, we're talking about 25 city blocks overall of what you're going to affect, but this Pearl Pearl Square district is probably about like 4 block, 5
It's
block,
about 10 of them
10 of
now.
them. Okay,
Yeah.
10 of them.
Yeah, it's
10 of them.
grown. It's grown in
Yeah.
size since when we first started this 3 years ago. But yeah, and that's been intentional and it's happened for really great but relatively organic reasons.
Yeah.
So we have, and I'll tell you the stats that you had some of them up there earlier. The first phase alone will be about $750 million of capitalization. And that could grow a little bit based on what we end up doing on the one final site that we're adding to this first phase called Pearl Square. Really a neighborhood. We should probably call it a neighborhood, but it's at that, especially at 10 blocks, that scale really starts to feel like a neighborhood, like a Water Street in Tampa. But so 1,250 residential units, you mentioned that.
Mhm.
And that's just in Pearl Square alone. So there will be a lot more in other future phases and other neighborhoods that we were able to create downtown. 200,000 square feet of grocery anchored retail. I'll come back to the retail maybe here in a bit and talk
Okay.
a little bit more about that. But we also acquired an entire city block since the last time I was on that has the old Ambassador Hotel,
That's right.
which
Okay.
is currently vacant, and we're now working with a company called Indigo Road Hospitality out of Charleston. Guy named Steve Palmer, who is one of the best in the business. They own and manage a number of restaurants and hotels all throughout the Southeast. We are lucky to in Oku. For those of you that are joining us from Jacksonville, you would know Oku on Jack's Beach, but there are a lot of other examples, and we are lucky to be working with him on that hotel. And he's looking to do an Italian restaurant on the ground floor of the hotel. And that'll be 110 keys of really cool boutique style hotel rooms,
I love a
but
good
great food
boutique
and
hotel.
beverage.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. With the food and beverage concept involved. Yeah, we
absolutely.
travel to those.
And public spaces, two parks. Pearl Square itself will feel like a park. That's the street that again is sort of the namesake of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
We'll be able to close that off. You can have festivals, farmers markets. I'm sure there will be almost all of those spaces will be food and beverage, so there'll be a lot of outdoor dining. It'll really feel like a special place. And believe it or not, this might be a surprise to some people, but we are planning on, or we are currently designing an office building, a new office building. And the reason for that is that we have not seen it in Jacksonville yet, but there is a trend in urban downtown areas all throughout the United States, or I should say in the Sun Belt cities especially. It's been proven out where there's a saying called flight to quality for office tenants.
Okay.
And so these are tenants that are looking for better designed floor plates, really great amenities, outdoor space for their employees, and for well lit spaces,
Sure.
everything that you need today to run a really great, efficient company and to motivate your employees.
Yeah.
And a lot of the office buildings, candidly, that were designed and built in the 80s, 90s, and even the early 2000s were not designed in a way to maximize all of that. They were designed in a way to pack people in.
Yeah.
And a lot of the floor plates are really deep because in some instances, if you think of like a law firm, you would typically have exterior offices that would be filled with that's right. And then you'd have, the clerks that would be sort of in the
Yeah.
dark area in the middle. And we just don't work that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of tenants these days are looking for spaces that they can make very open, collaborative,
Yeah.
like I said, well lit, lots of outdoor space and amenities that you may not see in older buildings. So we're excited about that one.
That's cool, man. I feel like you pre-explained this idea that office buildings have been, like in the media, you hear like there's like an office building crisis kind of thing, like, right? People aren't going back into offices, return to work we don't know if it's working or not. But at the end of the day, we keep hearing on the show, we've talked about this a couple of times, right? Like Jacksonville is the number 2 hottest job market in the US, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
We are the number 1 city for corporate relocation. And at the end of the day, these companies that are relocating to Jacksonville, they want really good office amenities in order to attract the talent that we are attracting in Jacksonville to go work for them, right? Like Lee Bishop, who we call the MVP of our community, has a question talking about where do we stand with attracting people into the city to live? Has there been a significant influx of residents to the downtown area? Like I guess the number that we always talk about is this like 10,000 resident threshold that when downtown crosses, we can cross into this 16-hour downtown kind of city. Now that you've been here a couple of years, are you starting to see more residents in downtown? Is that something that's still to come? How do you feel it on the street?
Yeah, a couple of things I'd say about that. The first is downtown is a very big area. So I think 10,000 residents was at the time it was established to as a very lofty goal. But it's been achieved or it's very, very close to happening now. And most of those units, not all of them, but most of them have been focused in and around the Brooklyn neighborhood of downtown. And yeah, when you are in that area of downtown, there is a lot more activity that is happening today. And if there was one area of the the area that's defined as downtown, which includes Brooklyn, the Villa, the urban core, Cathedral Hill, and the sports and entertainment district. Um, it's the area that has the most activity and probably where you've seen, land values rise the most and institutional investment being interested in it.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that it's important to note Brooklyn really quickly is just that it has you really you need to densify an area with people living in in a certain area to really see that street life and that urban life.
Yeah.
And if you do one project over here, one project over here, it's not going to feel the same. And frankly, as a pedestrian, you may not feel as excited about going out and walking around if you're one building in an island of parking lots, for example, right?
Yes, 100%. So goes back to that credibility of what you said of activating both sides of the street as well.
Right.
I put up this graphic just to kind of show what you're talking about. I think this is Brooklyn right here, right? Like right in this area. It may be. If not, it's down here.
No, that's right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in that kind of where it says McCoy's Creek, Emerald Trail, that whole
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
Yep.
So this is Brooklyn here. That's an area that has like a thriving like YMCA, a couple Fortune 500 headquarters.
Yep.
My favorite Venezuelan restaurant is there, Arepa Please.
Oh yeah, I love that
Yeah,
place.
I love those guys.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
those guys are my
They
buddies.
just
And
opened in Atlantic Beach too.
Atlantic Beach.
Yeah, that's right.
Trust me, I was there 2 days ago.
Okay.
And this activated river walk that people actually use. Once you start moving this way, there's kind of like a little bit of a drop off at times, but then this sports and entertainment district is really starting to come up. That's what you're talking
Right.
about?
Yeah, then that's where the Four Seasons is under construction and the office space. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I like it. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah,
And then Pearl Square is like a little bit north of here as well.
that is actually in that area where all those colors are. That's
Oh.
Pearl Square right there. So it's very close. It's a 5-minute walk down to the water. It's basically adjacent to City Hall in downtown.
Yeah.
So it's right in the heart of the city. I love we relied being again a data loving design and the implications of design, but really focusing on the data of why to do it and the positive and negative things that can happen because of design. I look at Brooklyn I have looked at Brooklyn in a positive way, and then there's some challenges with it. The positive is that when we were justifying to our investors in Gateway Jacks to do what we're doing at Pearl Square, we used a lot of data from Brooklyn. We used, there are a number of units in the residential buildings there that do really well, and there are some units that don't do very well. So we dove into the data and said, we think that these units are doing well because of X, Y, and Z. Why don't we go build a building full of those good units? And not just go build sort of another, typical building that's been built in Jacksonville. So
Interesting.
that was our view on the residential. And then if you dug into the retail that's been built there, they get some of the best retail rents in the entire city, and the volume of sales that they make in those places is astronomical.
Yeah.
Which would tell you that there's significant demand for more of it. and that they'd be, retailers would be willing to pay more in rent to do that.
Interesting.
So those are the positives. The negatives are, I think of an area like Brooklyn, Riverside Drive is a 6-lane thoroughfare. It doesn't feel great to walk
Hard
on
to
it.
cross.
Hard to cross. There's a big surface parking lot in front of the Fresh Market, which, again, it doesn't feel great as a pedestrian to walk to that grocery store, but you can still do it. It feels better than not. So, what we are proposing to do in Pearl Square is to do all of the things to capitalize, I think, on all of the trends that we're seeing in Brooklyn, but do it in some ways in a better manner and make it more pedestrian friendly and urban.
Yeah, man. It's interesting because as we've had this conversation on the show, what's very clear to me is that the pattern recognition has been very, very real. Like it's almost like you tell me, right? Like you've been studying this much longer than I have, but it feels like over the last generation, we've seen a handful of great downtowns happen.
Hmm.
And that has also come during the time of the internet that wasn't around during the previous great downtown buildings, right? So, like, whether it is the Miami Renaissance of like what happened down there, or Charlotte or Austin or Denver or Nashville and all the stuff that's going on, it feels like there is a great pattern recognition of seeing what worked in other cities and being able to apply it for this round. And Jacksonville has now had its own little like sets of patterns inside of it of people trying this long enough where you can not just take the pattern recognition of other cities, but also contextualize it to what's working here.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. Uh, that's, when 10 years ago, when we started, when I was in Tampa and we were contemplating what to build there.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it wasn't sort of a given that a big investment, large scale, mixed use urban project would work.
Yeah, yeah.
That,
Real quick, just to get
yeah,
context, Bryan also developed the Tampa Water District, the HQ2 development in DC. So you've done this a couple of times, right? So
yeah,
now
that's
you're
correct.
talking about like in Tampa Water Street, you're doing the same exact thing 10 years ago, pre this pattern recognition.
Yeah, that's
Continue.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in some ways similar, in some ways different, which we
Yeah.
can get into. But yeah, and it just wasn't a given. It had, it had started to take off in places like Charlotte and places in Denver and I had witnessed it firsthand in DC, where a lot of urban areas in DC were starting to go through an urban renaissance, if you will. And but in Tampa, there was nothing like that. And, candidly, there were a lot of skeptics. I remember 10 years ago, a lot of people in Tampa just said, I'll see it when I believe it. I've heard a lot of promises and not a lot delivered on downtown in Tampa.
Sounds very
Sounds
similar.
similar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, I get that today. And, and by the way, I don't, for those of those that have thought that way, you also can't fault them because there have been a lot of developers out there that have probably, made promises that
Totally.
haven't come true. But proof's in the pudding. We've got 2 buildings under construction, and a lot of really great things to talk about. So, ultimately I've seen it before. For those of you that don't know Tampa, and for those of you that do, uh, just if you could have walked around in Tampa 10 years ago, and specifically in downtown, it was a ghost town after 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And now it's full of life all times of the year. There's a great river walk, great parks have been built in the last 10, 15 years. Great. So it's all those things that I saw, 3-hour drive from here,
Yeah.
happen right before my eyes. And by the way, I think Jacksonville is in a better position with its fundamentals, its economic fundamentals than Tampa was 10 years ago.
Interesting. What
And
do you think about that?
so, I could probably talk about a whole bunch of them, but you mentioned job growth,
Yeah.
right? The retail sale, I mean, these are in no particular order. Retail sales growth over the last 4 years, number one, Jacksonville, Florida.
Interesting. In Florida or in the US?
No, in the US.
Wow.
Yeah. Number
Okay.
two, I think, is Austin. Number three, Nashville.
Interesting. I mean, that
Yeah.
bodes well for the whole like rising median wage argument.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's right. And Another very interesting thing, average incomes
Yeah.
or median
Yeah.
incomes are about the same in Jacksonville in the metro area as they are in Orlando and Tampa. However, our rents are a lot less.
Yeah.
So if you look at rent to income ratios,
Yep.
we are one of the cheapest in the nation.
More spending money.
More spending money,
Yeah.
more ability to appeal as a real estate developer. One of the hardest things in Tampa is in order to pay for land and to build something there, you have to charge a lot of rent to
Yep.
do that today. And we are able to deliver some of our buildings for rents that are going to be much more affordable than if you were in Tampa or in Orlando.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think what you're going to start seeing, by the way, this is already being proven out in the numbers. A lot of people from South Florida are moving north.
Yeah.
So
I was tip of the spear there.
yeah. Well, and I was looking at Redfin does data once in a while
Yeah.
on migration patterns. I don't know exactly how that, I forget what their methodology is, but number one in migration market, according to Redfin, as of the first and second quarters was Miami into Jacksonville, which
Interesting.
that's a big change from the post-COVID
Yeah.
dynamic
Yeah.
of, people from they're still moving from the north too,
For sure.
but Miami's just overtaken it.
That's super, super interesting. So I'm gonna get better Cuban coffee finally.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm excited for that. Yeah, man. I'm not surprised, right? Like I will tell people from Miami to move here until I'm blue in the face, right? Because it's worked out so well for me. Those are really cool stats. So growing retail spend, what was it? It was
Yeah,
retail spend.
percent increase in retail expenditures from 2000 to 2004, and so that points to a lot of things. Right, I love that number because it shows there's job growth. It
Yeah,
shows that there's wage growth,
yeah,
that they're good jobs. The fact again, I'm not going to get the exact number for you, but a lot of the retailers that are food and beverage heavy in Brooklyn, for instance,
mhm,
are making between $5 and $10 million a year. I mean, it's pretty crazy the numbers that some of these restaurants are in the Brooklyn and down
yeah,
into Riverside and San Marco areas. So um,
yeah,
it's yeah, to me it shows a couple things. One is that the fundamentals are all already very strong here.
mhm,
But two, there is a significant pent-up demand for shoppers, customers,
yeah,
people that want to go downtown for some entertainment, for some really
yeah,
great restaurants. And we're betting that a lot of those people, both in and out of market today, are going to want to live downtown too
yeah.
because of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. We talk about pent up demand right now on the show often in the sense of interest rates have been really high for really, really long, and therefore people just haven't been, it's been slowing in sales, but the demand is still there, right, in the real estate market. And when I think of the stats that you're sharing, right, this idea that like people have spending money, people have um, we have the same wages but much lower cost of living than these other cities that are much more expensive. What I think of an investor is okay, home price appreciation has a long way to go here,
No
right?
question.
Like the real estate market will appreciate here, rents will continue to go up for the people that are living in our houses, and they're going to be able to afford it because the economics are there. We were talking a little bit before the show about. I was asking you kind of like what's changing on the ground, and
Mhm.
you were like institutional money starting to roll through here. Tell me a little bit about the profile of the investor that is investing in that is looking at in downtown right now versus when you first kind of got started here.
So yeah, that it's a great point. I lean into my experiences in DC the first time around. So when I was doing urban large scale but still sort of urban infill in DC,
Mhm.
grocery anchored types of deals like we're doing here, and in Tampa, where institutional investors they don't love necessarily being the first mover. And what I've seen in other markets is I was joking earlier, it's like a drip out of a faucet to start. And then by the time you're done, it's a waterfall. And
Yeah.
I would say that when when I first started 3 years ago, it was more like a drip coming out of a faucet, where there were a couple of what I would call institutional investors or developers that were interested, and some of them had made investments in Jacksonville. And I can't tell you how many meetings I take a week now with institutional investors. I mean, it is, and they're not just interested in our stuff. They're very interested in our stuff, but they want to do things on their own. They want to make other investments in downtown and other parts of Jacksonville, for that matter, because they believe, because they've seen it in other markets, that as the tides rise in downtown, it's going to lift the boats of other neighborhoods in Jacksonville too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've in fact two calls with groups from out of market that are, looking to invest in downtown this afternoon. And it's so similar to what we saw in Tampa, so similar to what I saw in DC
Yeah.
a number of years ago. It's just once one of their friends jumps in and makes a big investment, it's like a herd that follows, and you're starting to see that now.
Interesting. So just educate me real quick. When we say institutional investors are now coming, that is, who was the old investor, right? Like, what's the difference between the institutional investor and what was investing
Yeah,
before?
good question. So a lot of, I guess, the what I would call the old investor, or maybe the established investor in Jacksonville, um, today, but certainly a number, 5, 10 years ago, into today, would have been someone that was more of a local high net worth individual,
Got it.
someone that had a reason to invest in our case, a reason to invest in downtown,
Got it.
other than
Like
just seeing the
JWV.
opportunity, like JWV. I think it's a great example.
Yeah.
Um, and institutional investment, while it can be local, DLP capital, for instance, you could definitely call DLP an institutional style capital investor, and they happen to be local. But a lot of institutional capital, candidly, comes from outside of Jacksonville. A lot of it centered in the Northeast, Miami. A lot of financially international markets, I guess, right? The hubs for financial activity are typically where a lot of these institutional investors are located. Now it's also migrating into what's called the family office market. So you're seeing a lot of families that have, instead of investing through an investment bank, for example, might establish their own family investment arm. And so there are a lot of family offices that are turning into institutional style investment. Endowments, universities have endowments that do it. Foundations sometimes will invest in things, like Ford Foundation is a big example of a group that I've worked with before. Pensions, that could go on. There are lots of style, but it's those types of investors that are looking for, it's harder to make money in areas that have already seen price appreciation.
Yeah.
It's just harder, right? I mean, it could be less risk, but it's going to be harder for higher return.
Yep.
And for those institutional investors that are interested in opportunity style returns, double-digit returns, you have to be looking at things that are slightly more, risky.
Yeah.
And the great thing about what we're doing in Jacksonville is the story here is it's development. Development can be risky. What we're doing in downtown, it's not for the faint of heart, but we are not the first. This is not the first time this story has been written. It's been done in Tampa and Orlando. It's been done we talked about it earlier.
Same guy.
DC. Yeah. So,
yeah, right. Yeah.
So in many ways, and the more we start construction, the more retail that we announce. We're going to have a lot of that in the latter part of this year. I think people will start to see this as even less risky, and we'll start to see more and more and more institutional investment.
It's cool, man. When I think of institutional investment and family offices, I'm thinking of people with much more capital to deploy than the average person, right? Like they're cutting much bigger checks.
Yeah.
And they get access to certain things that other people, like average investors, Main Street investors like myself and a lot of the folks on this community, don't really have the chance to have access to, because the check is so big and you got to be so liquid in order to be able to do it
Yeah.
and be able to have these like, non-immediate cash flow needs in order to be able to do it, because it's just kind of like this big faceless pool of money. What excites me though is the idea. I think the latest newsletter that I wrote for JWB that's going to come out next week is this idea that like show me anywhere else in the world where in a moment where all this institutional money is headed to one opportunity, there also happens to be like an ancillary opportunity that is made for the common man, like what JWB is doing in an asset class that actually lends itself to that. These aren't derivatives. This isn't like weird stuff, right? Like this is,
Real estate.
hey, yeah, it's real estate, right?
Yeah.
It's tried and true where millionaires are made in the United States.
Yeah.
And it's like these big institutions from all over the place are seeing the thing in downtown happening, and they can come to like a big operation like yourself, cut a giant check. But the fact that there's another operation that is JWB that allows you to cut a check, a smaller check, own a single family home, workforce housing that's going to house all the people that are going to be working in these jobs,
Right.
that are going to be spending money in these retail stores and be able to make money, wealth alongside of it while filling a critical need, seems to be, that to me is the unique thing, right? It's like the level of access to this based on an operator like yourself doing this for the institutional side
Mm-hmm.
and a similar operator doing it for like the mom and pop side that's going to benefit from this. In the Tampa thing that you saw,
Mm-hmm.
right, like Water Street, in DC
Great
and the
example.
developments around there, were there other groups that were also housing providers that would allow you to, like a regular person, to invest in workforce housing?
Not that I know of,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, but it's interesting you bring up Tampa. I was just thinking, I think 10 years ago, you know, Tampa probably had a number of nicknames that weren't very good,
Yeah.
um, and it had a negative brand. Jacksonville, I don't think has a negative brand. It probably needs a stronger brand nationwide, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's got a negative brand. Um, but what you saw when you saw downtown Tampa and downtown St. Pete, because there were a number of projects were happening across the bay too. But when you saw these downtowns start to come to life, and there were so many things to do, and 20 and 30-year-olds and empty nesters and in between were flocking to downtown to hang out, to live. And by the way, coming in from out of market too, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Not just within the city themselves. That just doesn't stop at downtown. I mean, because look, if you're raising a family, there might be reasons why you don't want to live in an apartment or a condo in the middle of downtown, right?
Maybe you have a puppy, for example.
Maybe you just got a puppy, for example. And you want a backyard, and a lot of the reasons why people really like living in the suburbs or at least in a single family house. And but they still like hanging out downtown, or they still like enjoying the amenities of downtown. So you don't just see, in an instance where downtown starts to flourish, you don't just see the downtown flourish. You see all the surrounding neighborhoods start to flourish too. And I think that's going to happen here.
Yeah, I believe it, man. And so I'm just gonna throw up the graphic here of the JWB neighborhoods that we all invest in, right? Like
It's crazy.
It's an unbelievable graphic, right? I don't know if you've ever seen this.
I don't think I have.
Our community has seen it, but this is downtown. This is everything that's happening, and these are the homes that our community owns, the product that JWB offers. So it's like these are all the folks benefiting from this stuff. That's why we're all so all in on this, right? Like it's a really cool alignment of incentives of local investor type people that got in early, bringing in the institutional capital, but also allowing the average retail investor to be able to do it. Can we take some questions?
Yeah.
Before we get out of here?
Let's do it.
All right. Billy Green, the mountain man from the mountains of Colorado. He says, the only thing that draws me to downtown besides visit from Pablo, I visited him. We went to the Rhino District.
Oh, good.
Are the theater venues and comedy and music. Will there be any anchor theaters to draw in folks from the suburbs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think entertainment style venues are really important. And there is a real opportunity for them in downtown today. So you have the Florida Theater, for example, you have Daly's Place. But one is actually relatively small and the other is gigantic, right? Somewhere in between 1,000 seats and then one's 5,000. There's a new venue Deca that just started, and so that's helped to fill the gap. But yeah, so I think from a straight and there's, by the way, there's an opportunity to do a lot smaller too. You mentioned the comedy club.
Yeah.
So that's something we're looking into doing, and yeah, so I think entertainment, and there's also this is not really new anymore, but there's also this idea of entertainment, which is it's the idea of combining an entertainment style venue with food and beverage.
Yes.
So
like movie theaters have done.
Yeah, like movie theaters have been doing it forever, so it's not
like the Coco Bongo or whatever, right?
Or even like playing, pickleball. There are indoor pickleball venues now that have like full scale restaurants alongside. So it's go play pickleball and then pig out on some food. So but yeah, I think entertainment will be critical to downtown success.
I love it, man. I'm super pumped that Deca place open, right? Because now we're getting these acts that like before, because we only had like dailies or something else. So you get like the 50-year-old rockers that were like doing their final, like the Green Days are coming back around. Right. But now getting these like smaller mid-market acts that I used to get at like Fillmore size venues, like in Miami, or Revolution Live is another kind of like size venue. We can definitely use that stuff. I love it. I love it.
No question.
Yep. The Michael Santorius, the patron Santorius of the community, says, with many of us, he's from DC area. So
okay, great.
With many of us being out-of-state investors in Jacksonville, with significant development underway at Gateway Jacks, are there any live time-lapse cameras available for the public to monitor progress?
We do have some cameras, and I was going to say we're working on trying to figure out how to share that with the public. I will say there's on develop. Jacks is it developjacks.org or developjacks.com, one of the two. There is now a 360 tool, so you can actually click on that, and it's by a group called Fun to Watch. Shout out to them. Justin Senna. Yeah. So you can actually now you can click on there, and a whole bunch of different downtown projects. You can click on it. I think they did some drone shots all throughout every project. So you can click on it. You can kind of do a 360 view of everything. So
very cool.
In the interim, I would check that out. But
Michael, I will find out from Justin exactly where that link is and share it with the community.
Great.
Coming up here. Yeah. That's an easy one for me. Ed Lowry says, at Summit, you talked about how much the city government had bought into the vision and were doing everything they could to support the growth. Media was reporting that funding for the Emerald Trail had been clawed back by the federal government. Is that project still on track, and how will that play into Gateway Jacks planning?
Candidly, it was unfortunate that the Emerald Trail, which I think is going to do so many great things, not just for the downtown core, but all throughout Jacksonville, really connecting cities via bike and pedestrian paths. Seeing what happened in Atlanta with the Beltline, I think that's going to be a real catalyst. The good news is that was already planned to be funded through a gas tax that was passed a number of years ago. And so it's just going to take a little bit longer to complete all 31 miles of trails that they want to do with it. The trails that will go by Pearl Square and the rest of the Gateway Jacks properties, or go through the urban core, I should say. The one is fully funded, and then another one has been proposed to be funded over the next couple of years.
Interesting.
So the ones that are very close to downtown, McCoy's Creek is under construction. There's the Park Road, that one's already complete. All the downtown components of the Emerald Trail will be in the near term. And then I think, the idea is to kind of grow it out from there. There's the S line. There's a whole bunch of them that are already open, but yeah, so it's disappointing if it's not going to happen like this, which I think we were all anticipating, but it's still in the works.
That's really good to know, man. I was really bummed when I saw that too, right? Like seeing how valuable trail-oriented development is. We actually had Steve Warnick on the show back in like 2020 talking about trail-oriented development.
Nice.
And to see kind of, I guess the way I conceptualize it is, if the interior part is kind of funded, we're going to at least get that, and then the rest can start to develop. And in time, maybe it becomes like the Swamp Rabbit Trail in Greenville, where you can like go different
Right,
places.
right.
But for right now, it's like for the urban core.
Yeah, and if you talk with Groundwork Jacks, who's the nonprofit that implements the Emerald Trail or design, is sort of the developer of the trail, if you think about it that way. They're going to go after other. There's still a lot of federal grant money out there for this type of thing. There were reasons why this one got clawed back. But there, I wouldn't say this is by any means the end of
The death sentence
end
for
of
the
the
Emerald
road.
Trail. Yeah.
Yeah.
End of the
End
trail.
of the trail.
End of the trail. All right, last question. Eileen Moore says, you mentioned that Jacksonville doesn't have a negative brand. I'm not sure they have much of a brand at all on a national level. Are you working with the city to develop a PR narrative that will position Jax as a hot destination like Tampa has been able to do, or Austin or Nashville on a much bigger level?
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. First of all, I agree with you. And I think Jacksonville's in a great spot. I mean, there are a number of directions I think that the brand of Jacksonville can and will go over the next several years. In the near term, one has to rely, I think, on the amazing quality of life here. The fact that you can get from the beaches to downtown and everywhere in between, and in a matter of 20 to 30 minutes is pretty incredible. Tampa really has gotten its brand. Of course, there was a Gasparilla, which is, an annual event down there, and a lot of things leaned in the absence of a really great downtown and city life. It leaned very heavily into that one event and everything. There's the Gasparilla Music Festival and the Gasparilla Marathon, and everything was Gasparilla. And now you've seen in Tampa that brand has started to evolve to be more cosmopolitan. Like come enjoy the arts and culture and in Tampa. And I would guess that that's going to happen with Jacksonville too. I believe that the quality of life in Jacksonville. I shouldn't. I hate to compare, but I'm going to do it. I think the quality of life in Jacksonville is especially because of its location on the East Coast, a little bit closer to the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, still close to
Weather's a
Miami.
little bit better, man.
Weather is a little bit better.
Yeah.
I can tell you that when October and November roll around in Tampa and it's still like upper 80s and hot and humid, and then up here you've already had a couple of cool fronts come through, that makes the world of difference.
Yeah, yeah. And like the beach is right there, right? Like Tampa's actually surprisingly far from the beach.
It is.
Right?
It's not a competition, but
not a competition. And everybody loves a good deal, man. Like at the end of the day, just like the quality of life per dollar spent here to me is unbeatable as far as what I've lived. I know you're spending time here now that you're living here.
Much more time here.
I love
it. Yeah. I mean, you can't beat that. That's pretty, wake up and watch the sunrise and run on the beach. That's pretty good life.
Yeah, it's a good life, man. I appreciate you coming, man.
You bet. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back on board. Thank you for the Not Your Average Investor Show family for asking these great questions, for showing up week after week. Next week, we'll have Greg back.